believes in Jesus belongs with me.
Who from this list, Mayor? And of course, this is updated as of tonight. 11 of the 24 Senate confirmed required positions have been, or the president has made his selections. Marco Rubio at State, Matt Gaetz, Attorney General, Pete Hegseth, Defense, Kristi Noem, Homeland Security, John Ratcliffe for CIA.
You know, I'll give you the ones who are obviously Marco's going to get through because he has bipartisan support. I imagine that Doug Burnham is going to get through, although they may have somebody come forward and say, I don't know, he wasn't nice to somebody, or he didn't hold, or he held the door for a woman, and that was sexual abuse. They'll come up with something. Um, the stuff they're doing to Gates is outrageous. They're completely outrageous. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're psyching people out, or it seems like they have the votes to stop them, which seems very unusual. Since I'd like to say to the Republican senators, you're not there because you're good looking. You're there because of Trump. That's why you have 53, not because of that big tall ass slicker that you have as majority leader. I mean, he was sucking around McConnell for years, and McConnell never told you about the $5 million he got from the father-in-law, who's one of the favored businessmen in Red China, did he? Which is the reason why he did everything he could to quash the Biden thing, including me. You always wondered, why wouldn't the Senate take that up? It's so clear that the guy got 21 million. And it's so clear that Biden got the money. Joe got the money. You know who tells you that? His son. Not only that, it's in writing. People say, oh, it might be hyperbole. Anything could be hyperbole. You could attack any of the testimony in the Penny trial that way, any of the testimony in the Lincoln Riley trial that way. But I'm telling you, you don't get an admission in writing too often in a criminal case. Admission. It says, for 30 years, I've been giving my father half my salary. Now, why the hell would he do it? If half his salary wasn't owed to his father, because it bought his father, and because his father sold you, the American people, down the river. His whole career was devoted to selling out the United States of America. So stop all the phony bullshit about him. The guy is a completely evil creep. Also, if you ever took a look at the pictures on their damn hard drive, you'd wonder, do they care about their kids? Hunter told his old man that I'm a danger to two of Joe's grandchildren. Joe didn't do anything about it. Well, that's consistent with a guy who's never met one of his grandchildren. All he cares about is his pathetic political career, because that's how he made a fortune. This guy is so stupid. He was left back in the third grade. He failed out of law school, and he wrote a plagiarized paper to get back in. And in 1988, every liberal columnist in the world said, thank God we pointed out what a big liar he is and we got rid of this dope. He didn't make money because of his wits. He made money because he was willing to do, I hope, what most people wouldn't do. Sell himself completely, 100%. And to our enemies, China, Russia. Zelensky's got so much on him, I'm surprised Zelensky only got 164 billion out of it. And because of the corruption that he fostered, and Obama and Obama did nothing about in Ukraine, you have any idea how that money's used? And if you do, you don't know what you're talking about. The country that used to always be very loosely described as the second most corrupt country in the world hasn't been reformed. Zelensky didn't reform it. Did you notice he did away with elections? It's a democracy. We're giving that money to a democracy. Look, I'm all in favor of the Ukrainian people, and I hate Putin. And I wish they could defeat him. But I know what a big phony this is. This has now become an endless war where they can just whack up 8 billion, 10 billion. And they've been doing it for years. It'd be impossible for them not to do it. With this kind of money around, they're going to go for it. So we got a chance if we put people in there who are really, really tough. And all the people who are really tough are objectionable, like Pete Hegseth. Pete has written a book. Read his book. It's a bestseller. Some of these idiots said he isn't smart. He isn't well educated. Well, he went to Princeton and Harvard when they actually was still teaching. If he went now, I could understand if they say he was not educated. But he went there a while back when they were still actually teaching things like history and trigonometry and calculus and stuff like that. Not just how many pronouns are there and how do we, I mean, it got to take 4 years to learn about the 87 genders, right? When you start getting to 56 and 57 and 58, what the hell, what kind of gender is it? Yeah. Do you think at Harvard they have like those little boxes where you can urinate if you think you're a cat? Or they have in some schools? You know, they do. They do. In some schools, they actually the kids who think they're cats, they want them act like cats. Might be a bad idea to like to bring in a doctor, talk to the kid a little, you know, like, hey, kid, you're not a cat. My father would have straightened me out right away if I thought I was a cat. What about you, Dad? Yeah, I don't think I'd have been a cat very long. It would have been over with real quick. And it wouldn't have been very sensitive. I'd have been scarred for the rest of my life, but I wouldn't be a cat. Oh, so I hope that Pete and Matt Gaetz get through. Um, and I sure as hell I'm not going to pronounce that those senators who say they're going to vote against him are really going to vote against him. And I hope Trump puts it down on a list somewhere because you have got to give your president the people he wants because you can't hold him to account if you don't. I could not have done what I did as mayor if I wasn't able to put the people in that I wanted. And I didn't have to get almost anyone confirmed. I'm trying to think who had to be confirmed. Commissioner of Investigation. I don't even know if the police commissioner is confirmed. But they used to complain that I put in all these people who supported me and worked on my campaign and agreed with me. So I got so annoyed about it, I called a press conference and I said, you know, I'm going to make a deal with you. Let me have the people I want so I can do what I said I was going to do. And I need people who agree with me. If I want to lower taxes. I can't have people that want to raise them. I want to put in more cops, not get rid of cops. So I have to have people that want more cops. I want to do away with a lot of the pro-friendly criminal activities of my predecessor, Dinkins, who has the record for the most murders in the history of the city, over 2,000 per year. So let me have the people that agree with me first time around. Next time, I'll hire people who all disagree with me. I'll lower taxes, but they'll disagree with it. I'll say, in order to get welfare, you have to work, but they'll disagree with me. I'll say, if you're a panhandler on the street, you can't just go up to somebody's car in the middle of the street and start washing their window and banging them around and scare the hell out of them. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a ticket or arrest you. Or you got to pay your toll when you go on this. And you can't be a toll jumper. I'll get somebody who agrees with toll jumping, but I'll be against it. And then I'll try to effectuate the policy. Do you realize how stupid this is? I mean, the big article, even in the Wall Street Journal that has some degree of intelligence, saying it's appointing loyalists. I changed it. I don't know if you saw the show. It might have been the other show. I did a headline that says Trump appoints disloyalists because he's nuts. Well, he should be given, if he wants Gates, give him Gates. And then if he fails, okay, he fails. But don't let him have to go to some kind of establishment guy like half the attorney generals or more are that really care about going to cocktail parties and what does the Crooked Bar Association say about them? I mean, that bar association is a bar association of people who suck off the government tit. They're a lot of them are the lobbyists that you worry about all the time. They're the ones who disbarred me. I should have been proud of it. Jesus, who wants to be? Or the New York bar. New York bar has supported for 150 years probably one of the most corrupt judicial systems in America. And they pretend that people are actually elected. Like Engelmoron. Engelmoron run 3 times in 19 years. Never had an opponent because the Democratic Party hack that runs the machine picks him. So federal judges are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. New York City Supreme Court justices are appointed by the lowest element of political operative, a New York City county leader. I tell you that as someone who probably was one of the most successful prosecutors of corruption in New York City and know it intimately. The city right now, under Adams, is corrupt as hell. And I agree with the president that Adams was singled out. They let him do what he was doing. They let him take a lot more than 120,000 that he took for his upgrades. And maybe he got a lot more because he was giving out all of these homeless contracts that are a fortune. No bid, no review, no accounting, just like the 164 billion that went to Ukraine. And the Republicans, made a little noise about it, but they didn't require it. Who knows what the hell they're doing? Not all of them, some of them. In New York, the Democrats are the crooks and the Republicans get the crumbs. Not all, but a hell of a lot more than you would like to see. Got to straighten this out. You only straighten out by putting the right people in. Put the wrong person in, they double cross you. They make it impossible to get the job done. So when I see problems, I'll point them out. I think his Secretary of the Treasury candidate is a hidden danger. He worked with Soros for 3 or 4 years. I wouldn't go near anybody that worked with Soros. I'd be worried that Soros is an extraordinarily cunning, evil man. There's an article today, thank God, that a lot of his prosecutors were defeated. You know how many people died as a result of these pro-criminal prosecutors he put in? The article says he put in 60. What the hell is he doing paying money for a prosecutor in Rochester, New York, who then ends up setting a record for the most murders in Rochester? What the hell is he doing paying for a prosecutor in Philadelphia who set the record twice? He broke his own record for murder. This is the records they have for murder. They've been presiding over Chicago. Every weekend, Chicago is like Vietnam, and nobody cares. And the Soros prosecutor now, they just sit there and the mayor, who's out of his mind completely, blames poverty on Richard Nixon. A lot of people in Chicago don't even know who Richard Nixon is. You really think with the kind of school system they have in Chicago, that people know who Richard Nixon is? The school system in Chicago is equivalent to the school system in New York. School system in New York, since I left, has dropped at least 20 positions, as against other countries, on reading, on math, on graduating, and they pay 3 times more per student than I would put in. You can almost trace declining scores, increased money. Because the money, like all the money we spend, most of it in New York is going a lot of places where it shouldn't. That's how New York City, with 8 million people, has almost the same budget as Florida with 22 million people. Or the state of New York, with 18 million people, has almost 2.5 times the budget of Chicago, of Florida. I'm just giving you a 360 degree. I'm going to give you another 360 degree that Bob Costello gave me today. People wonder, was the 2020 election stolen? So I'll pretend that I wonder. Do you really think that about 20 million more people voted in 2020 than now? And they all of them that dropped out happened to be Democrat votes? Do you really think that Joe demented Biden campaigning from his basement got more votes than Obama or Hillary Clinton by like 10, 15 million? And then they disappeared? They just disappeared. They went away. Where were all those people this election? What happened to them? But what happened to them is they didn't have the machine. They didn't have the guy driving the ballots from Long Island to Philadelphia because we scared the shit out of them. That doesn't mean they didn't cheat a little below the deck there on some of the other races, where they're still counting in California. How could they still be counting in California? Now, I know their educational system doesn't teach math anymore, but they could use their little, Yeah, ask a kid to do division now, and he looks for. No, you do it this way. 5 into 25. What? What's that? Oh, no. Oh, no. More important, what's your pronoun? Oh, I never had a pronoun. My mother gave me a name. She never gave me a pronoun. You know what gave me the pronoun? People say, oh, God gave me the pronoun. So Biden is traveling, and tomorrow, our demented president, who couldn't run as a Democratic candidate, right? Who couldn't be prosecuted for massive amounts of bribery because he's non-compos mentis, is going to meet with the leader of the country that wants to destroy us, Xi Jinping, who, by the way, funnels somewhere between, bare minimum 30 million, maximum 50 million to him in the last 6 years, which Xi Jinping knows, but most of you don't because it's been hidden from you. Joe got half of it. You know why Xi Jinping knows it? Because he knows that Hunter Biden was telling the truth when he wrote to his daughter that for the last 30 years, I gave half of my salary to my father. And he took a look at the hard drive and saw all of the emails that little Eric creep, who was fixing up the books, made sure that Hunter paid his fair amount. How about paying the old man rent for a house that Hunter owned? 50 grand a month for a while. That it was a way of evening up the score. Whoa, you got 3 million. Well, I get that amount of it. Or when the checks come into the brother James, and then all of a sudden the wife makes out checks for a loan for which there's no record ever, or no tax treatment of it, and they want people to pardon Hunter on the tax case. That would be a horrible underscoring of the deep state. We might as well just say we're going to continue. There's no accountability for massive criminality. That is a substitute for their being in jail for 20 years. And the whole thing was corruptly obtained. I mean, originally they're going to let him off completely with the crooked prosecutor that he had, but the judge wouldn't take it. I agree that the case probably wouldn't be brought against most people. It was brought against him because that's the best they could do. They very carefully left out anything having to do with money that went to Joe Biden. Because if they did, you'd be able to subpoena the bank accounts, and you'd see in a second. I don't know that anybody's ever subpoenaed the records of who bought the houses. You let them get away with it completely. And my friend Dershowitz said it should be done in exchange for pardoning all of the J6 people. Well, I think Alan has made a big mistake here. Alan is one of the most eloquent on the following subject, which I think I'm even more eloquent on, and it's the following. There's not a moral equivalency between Israel and Palestine. Israel is a democratic state under the rule of law, a lot of problems like we have, but a legal system, and they don't try to kill children and civilians. They try not to. Palestine is made up of children who were taught from 2 years old to kill Jews, to kill Americans, death to America, death to Israel, not just a slogan, they actually show them how to do it. Well, I'm sorry. There's a difference between the two. They can't be treated the same way. There's a difference between the J6 people. Some of them hit cops. Some of them did things wrong. Fine. They should have been prosecuted, but not the way they were. And a lot of them that were sucked in, and you can see it. You can see the cops bringing them in. They're in there for 3 minutes. They go into jail for 4 years. They should all be pardoned because they do anything wrong. But you don't then pardon somebody who did something wrong. You know what that's called? That's called a two-tiered system of justice. He gets pardoned because he committed a crime. I get put in jail and then pardoned. I didn't commit a crime because I'm a Republican, but he's a Democrat. That's the two-tiered system of justice. You know what a two-tiered system of justice is? It's not justice at all. It should be the same for both of us. Hunter should only get pardoned if he's innocent. He's not innocent. The J6 guy is innocent. It would just completely wipe out everything that was accomplished in revealing the criminality of these miserable human beings. And in fact, what should be done is they should be investigated, prosecuted, and thrown in prison so that other people don't do it. It is extremely effective to put people in prison, particularly these people, because they calculate. A lot of this would have been solved if Hillary had been prosecuted and Comey in particular. Comey, who completely disgraced the FBI, completely destroyed the FISA system's integrity, which has to do with the national security of the United States of America. It made Ray say, I can do anything I want. And he did. I mean, Ray covered up the hard drive. Ray carried on completely phony investigations. Ray supported every single cover-up the Bidens wanted to do. And you think they're investigating the assassination of Trump? Come on. How about, I mean, there was a great question that Matt Gaetz asked Ray, and he read to Ray the statement that Hunter Biden makes with his father sitting next to him. Now, of course, he says his father wasn't sitting next to him. I don't believe that, but that's not the core of it. The core of it is that the statement that that Hunter made is almost verbatim the definition of extortion. And it's on tape. And nothing happened. And Matt asked Ray, do you consider that extortion? And he wouldn't answer. He wouldn't answer because he's a corrupt little son of a bitch. That's why. He wouldn't answer because he knows the answer. Anybody else would have been prosecuted in a second. They'd have arrested him walking out. Or they might have even put leg irons like they did on Navarro for doing nothing, just being for Trump. Or they might knock down the door of his apartment and come into his apartment like they did for me, only to write a year and a half later, there's no probable cause that he committed any crime. Well, what was the probable cause to come into my apartment? You made it up. And I've done 50,000 times more with the FBI than Ray. Has Ray ever prosecuted the commission of the mafia? Ray ever sent Nazis off to their death? Yeah, did he ever go after Wall Street or corrupt politicians? Or what the hell did he do? What's his name? Governor Christie, the governor of New Jersey, nominated him. I don't know what the hell he did. He was Christie's lawyer in Bridgegate. I don't know of any famous prosecution, famous case that made him head of the FBI. He wasn't an agent. He was Christie's lawyer in Crooked, New Jersey. I've been a horrible director, only exceeded by Comey, because Comey had the brains to be a good director. And he knew exactly what he was doing. And it's a tragedy. I call him James Cardinal Comey because he's such a phony. And I hired him. Every so often, Trump reminds me of that. And I remind him that he hired Michael Cohen. None of us are perfect. So, Ted, there are a group of people, including Lindsay and others, who want to strip the 51 spies who lied of any security clearance. Should have been done that. Of course it should be done. They're traitors to the United States. They knew beyond any doubt that there was no indications of cooperation with Russia. They knew it. Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
All the trades. Russian to see, but that's how they.
By the way,
that's how they keep themselves.
But here's the real key. No, but here's the real key to why they're lying. They didn't name one.
Yeah.
No, not a single example, because they were lying. And they just signed it. They had like 3 minutes to think about it. It all came out and was all being prepared for the debate, in which the liar in chief gets up and says, well, 51 intelligence agents say that you and your pal Giuliani are Russian pawns. It was a setup. The press went along with it, and he got elected. And 20% of the American people said if they knew about it, they would have elected him. And 700,000 people would be alive in Ukraine today if that fraud wasn't accomplished. I think maybe they should take away their security clearance. Maybe they should do even more with them. But instead, Leon Panetta, phony that he is, ends up at the Democratic convention nominating Harris to show us they're going to continue. Well, we're going to take a short break. And as you contemplate what should be done with the 51 spies who lied, who also were responsible for Benghazi, the big mistake on weapons of mass destruction, I once told Trump, if the CIA gives you intelligence, do the opposite. Because any president for the last 20 years that had done that would have done a lot better. We'll be right back.
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50%, and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans. No Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
It's great coffee, by the way. I had it twice today, which is why I'm so fired up. Todd Bensman in the Post today, who probably knows more about immigration than most people, certainly any reporter, has a column about the travel ban. It's really interesting. That's how I first got involved in the Trump campaign way back in 2015 when he made the statement about the animals, that come in, and he was castigated. I got together a group of people and we wrote out a plan for. Remember, they said he was going to shut out Muslims. We wrote out a plan that was constitutionally absolutely perfect and logically sound and good law enforcement. I mean, after all, I did reduce crime more than any mayor in the city's history. I do know a little about it. So Benjamin is today writing about how well that worked and how terrible it was that Biden reversed it and all the people that got killed as a result of it. And it never was a Muslim ban. It was just think about this, right? You can't treat every country the same, right? I'll give you one good reason is some are more criminal than others and some are terrorists and some are not. We'll make it even easier. Some have no records. So I don't know who I'm getting. You know how many people have come in under Biden and they say, did you ever commit a crime? No. The guy, killed 20 people back there. But back there is Venezuela, who doesn't give us any records, or Somalia, that they don't even have records. Now, those are the countries in which you vet much more carefully, as opposed to what Biden did, which is to reduce the number of questions for the Chinese, who have a real desire to send spies here, right? You can figure that out. You don't have to be Harris or Biden or any of those nitwits, right, to realize that China wants to send spies here. Well, we only ask 4 questions. 4 questions of our biggest adversary. And those are the ones we get to see. So the one thing Todd didn't write about, which is the thing that concerns me the most, and I'm surprised that American people aren't informed on this more. A lot of people come in that we never ever see. And they're the most dangerous ones. And a reason that has been made into a great business now is because the cartels control the border much more than they ever did before. First of all, we created a vacuum. Under Trump, we did more enforcement than ever before. But we did some under Obama and everybody else. But under Biden, we not only stopped enforcing, we turned our Border Patrol into Rockefeller Center escorts. They helped the people come in. I just saw a picture of one 2 days ago, helping somebody come in. We pay him to keep people out, but the poor guy is told to do that. I have seen long lines of people being vetted. They have pictures of it. Where forget it. Probably forget it because you're not going to be able to check anything they say. So what the travel ban did, and it wasn't a ban, it increased the vetting significantly for countries that have high incidence of terrorism, for countries that might want to send spies here, and for countries that had no records and we couldn't verify. That's done in order to protect American life. Nothing racist about it. Nothing xenophobic about it. Something humane about it. And that's changed completely. And there were, I think the highest it ever got up to was about 16 countries or so. And he's recommending a few additional countries that are definitely going to have to be put on the list. And I think he's absolutely right. And I really do wish that Kristi Noem or some of the others that are involved in this pay attention to this, because this is not. They're going to be spending a lot of time at just stopping it at the border, sending people back. This is an important part of it too, and it's one of the reasons why Trump was so successful in getting illegal immigration under better control than any other president. To be reversed like that. Example: 400,000 came in Trump's last year. Most of them detained. 1.5 million came in Biden's second year. 2.2 million, and then 3.5 million. I mean, we're talking about a whole different order of magnitude. More people came in under Biden than came into Ellis Island. Ellis Island, in all the years that it existed, got 12 million people. All of them were heavily vetted. Probably even vetted more than we do now. I mean, put in hospitals if the slightest idea they had a disease. Put in holding facilities, slightest little suspicion they were criminals. We missed some, but we caught a lot. And then over the years, it fell apart a bit. And we thought it was pretty bad at certain points. But there's no president in American history that comes even close to what Biden and Harris did. What they really did was, I want you to think about this a little. They did away with America. If you don't have a border in a country like ours, you don't have a country. Because our country doesn't exist on a single race, single religion, or a single ethnicity. We're not all French. We're not all German. We're not all Chinese. We're not all whatever. We're lots of different people. So what brings us together? Well, Abraham Lincoln had the answer: shared values. And when you don't know who you're bringing in, you have no idea what their values are. You may be bringing in people that completely undercut your values, and we do, in large numbers. And they do the kind of thing that this guy Ibarra did to Laken Riley. And if you heard that testimony today, you'd go, thank God that we elected Trump. And we're going to end this. Because we keep this up, there are going to be a lot of Laken Rileys. And by the way, Trump is terrific, and he'll do better than anyone else. Not a magician. He can't just make them go away, particularly when we don't know how many are here. We're going to be living with this for quite some time. Now, it'll start getting better, but probably going to get worse before it gets better. We simply don't know how many people came in. We can come up with 8 million that came in, went through the broken down system. We got about another 2 million that Biden brought in specially, particularly Chinese. Maybe this was a quid pro quo for the 20, 30 million. Now, why the hell you would have charter flights for Chinese? It has to be a bribe. I wouldn't have any flights for Chinese, for that matter. I mean, the Chinese go after their own people that are second and third generation to flip them against us. If they can find any relatives back in China, they're the most unbelievably efficient and effective at infiltrating. And we are, in the last 4 years, we've virtually helped them. He agreed to charter flights for them so they could avoid any kind of immigration because nobody paid attention to all the money he got from them. I mean, the day he gave back the Bagram Air Base should have been the day that the emergency impeachment began of him and Milley and the generals around him who acted like Nazi prison guards and went along with it. They all had objected to it. Of course, you would have objected to it. You wouldn't give back an air base 400 miles from China, would you? Particularly one we had just put billions of dollars in, and it was probably our most effective base in all of Asia. Oh, just for a bonus, 400 miles from Iran, maybe our second biggest enemy. And 500 miles from Russia, maybe our third. Jeez, the only thing missing is North Korea. How could any loyal president of the United States give that base up? And how can you escape the fact that in the 5 prior years, and if you don't want to accept the fact that he got some of the money, even though his son tells you he did, there's no doubt his family got $21 million from him. And he gives up an no connection? Are we stupid? Just as stupid as to believe that all those people who voted in 2020, Democrat, like about 15 million, didn't vote this time, just disappeared. We don't know where they went. One. Kathy Hochul could be the biggest lying double crosser of all of the horrible Democrat governors, with the complete double cross she did with this tax on people who come into the city. I'm going to show you how it works in a minute, but this congestion pricing is a tragedy. As Trump points out, Trump had this like nice little talk with her. Boy, it only lasted a day. She and that monster Letitia James had a press conference, a really extraordinary press conference, in which they said they're going to go after Trump. And then either Trump called her or she called Trump for congratulations, and they agreed. Trump agreed that he was going to help her. He was going to help her rebuild parts of New York because he loves New York so much. And then the next day, after she canceled this back in May, because the Democrats were afraid that the Republicans would win all of the suburbs. And we won most of them, but there were probably a couple of races that were affected by this, probably about 3 more members of Congress. She said she was going to do away with this. Well, election's over. Congestion pricing starts in a month. So if you go below 60th Street, it'll cost you $9 every day. Then you do it. If you're a small truck, it'll cost you $14. Large truck, 21. Motorcycles only $4.50. Taxi drivers just 75 cents. And app-based for hire vehicles, I guess that's the Ubers and the Scoobers and the Subers, and that's $1.50. For a city that is losing more people than any city in the world, for a city where people are running out because the taxes are too high and the crime is too great and the conditions are terrible, now you're going to charge them to come in and get beaten up by a bunch of illegal migrants that Biden and Harris and Adams brought in? As the former mayor of the city, let me register the fact that this is probably one of the most treacherous things ever done by a governor of New York to the city of New York. And she should be thrown the hell out of office. And somebody should tell her husband, you can't have the concession at the stadium you're building for the Buffalo Bills, you miserable crook. I know what you're all about, Hochul. Cheap little politician doing this to New York City. The only thing worse, the people bought it. And they voted for Harris. The people bought this. You let the Democrat politicians, you New Yorkers, make absolute freaking idiots out of you. Worse than Chicago. 150 years of Democrat corruption. They even named a courthouse over the most corrupt politician in American history. There's a Boss Tweed courthouse. They get rid of Columbus, but they keep Boss Tweed. They get rid of Jefferson, but they keep Boss Tweed. It's actually good because it reminds people who do things like reading how corrupt they are. But what about the rest of you New Yorkers? You voted this moron into office. I mean, she can't even talk. It was quite obvious that she was only getting elected so she could make sure that the Buffalo Bills got the stadium and her husband got the millions for the concessions. And what about the extra $300 million she paid for COVID tests? $300 million more than California, and that turned out to be the contribution to her PAC. And they're investigating Adams, but not her, because she was a loyal little crook. He was a disloyal, whatever he is. Hasn't been convicted. Got to presume that he's innocent. All I can tell you is I know the city better than probably almost anything. This has all the earmarks of what they've been doing for 150 years and what I prosecuted so often I could do it in my sleep. And I also have to tell you, if they don't straighten out the courts in this city, it's going to go down, because they let the lowest form of politician appoint the judges, and they make believe they're elected. And you go along with it because you don't pay attention. The reason the city is falling apart is, crooked politicians, but you voted for them. And you've been warned now for years. And you also saw what it was like if the city is run honestly. Not just me, Bloomberg. And you still elect these people. And you still voted for Harris. It's not going to change. They're not going to get fixed until you throw them out. Their philosophy, if you want to call it that, that's really too fancy. Their corrupt ideas are exactly that. They're corrupt. And they've been that way for a long time. I'm not talking about the entire Democratic Party. I'm talking the Democratic Party from American municipalities. Probably the most corrupt political element in America for years. And what they do to poor people is a sin. They make them into modern day slaves. You know how much dependency has gone up under Biden and Harris? We are highest level of dependency ever in the history of the country. It's extraordinarily dangerous. We have more dependency than socialist countries, or some socialist countries. So I don't know why you don't call us a socialist country. Let me see if I can show you. I'm going to try here. See if we can get it for you. It doesn't want to change on me. Oh, well, that's terrible. We'll see. But I was going to try to show you the picture of this here. Let's see. There you go. So that's the way it works. You come below 60th Street, which is the largest financial district in the world, or at least in America. I think actually the city of London might be bigger now. Again, we lost that under Democrats. I mean, that's where everybody's got to go. And now you got to pay for the privilege of going there with a very, very increased chance you can get your head bashed in by somebody from Somalia, somebody from Venezuela, somebody from Honduras, not somebody from Brooklyn or Queens. Recently brought in by the guy that was corruptly elected in 2020. Yeah, exactly why is she doing this? It's in order to subsidize the MTA because they don't charge what they should charge for the ride, which is another form of welfare, right? The MTA should charge what the hell it costs to ride the subway.
Petty crime for those that jump over the turnstile.
Jump over the turnstile. Yeah, my God. When I first started enforcing that, they thought I think that's the first time they called me Hitler, until it stopped the serial murder. I tell you, this is a true tragedy. Now, I want to show you some good news. Okay, that's just a little picture of this, but Soros prosecutors are getting kicked out, and they're even getting kicked out in very blue areas. Now, that's a bit of good news. I guess crime, my predecessor, Ed Koch, used to say, if you want to make a liberal into a conservative, mug them. And then one day there was a judge who used to let all the criminals go that Koch used to attack all the time, who got mugged. Bad enough so he went to the hospital. So the press, who used to go after Koch as if he was a Republican because he governed in the last couple of years as a conservative. The cops, the press went to the hospital and they asked the judge who let all these criminals go, told him what Koch said, and he said, "Have you become a conservative?" He said, "No, I will still be a liberal." They came back to Koch, and Koch, who was quick as I said, "Mug him again." It'll turn. So I want you to look there at what happened in the DA's races. And these are places that Harris won for reasons I can't figure out, because she's in favor of these let the criminals go free and beat the living daylights out of the people, unless there's race involved, and then we'll change it. Brooke Jenkins beat the Soros funded prosecutor Ryan Kojaste, I don't know, 3-1, 2-1, beat the crap out of him, and probably had no money, and Ryan had a fortune. But the people of San Francisco, having tossed out Boudin, whose parents were involved in planning and plotting to murder police officers, they tossed him out on a recall. Los Angeles County, who failed to throw Gascon out, who has destroyed Los Angeles County. This is another Soros gift, which is why Trump should not appoint the guy who was a business partner of Soros, because you have no idea what kind of connection Soros has or what he might be trying to do, infiltrate your administration. Who the hell knows what? You should just assume you're in business with Soros. Better to avoid you. Nathan Hochman, 61%. And George, who probably had 20-1 in money, 39%. Even though Harris had 65, which is nuts, because she agrees with George Gascon. And then in Alameda County, which is right across the river from San Francisco, and indeed had one of the great prosecutor's office in the country, is the prosecutor's office for the Republicans in 1948 was the DA of New York, or maybe the U.S. attorney then, Tom Dewey. No, the governor then, but had made his mark as a DA and U.S. attorney. And Earl Warren, who had made his mark as the DA of Alameda County. But she didn't know that Earl Warren ran for vice president and lost in the Dewey beats Truman race. You think they may have stole that one too? Well, I don't know. They'll really get in trouble if I bring that, because they made Truman into like a really great hero. The guy who gave away Korea, yeah. And the guy who stopped MacArthur from maybe destroying Red China when there was a decimated army there. And he had just pulled off one of the greatest military maneuvers in history, the Incheon landing. And the Red Chinese had come over the river and kill our boys. And MacArthur wanted to go back and kill them. Pretty sensible. And the communists around Truman convinced him, it might start a world war. Yeah. China had just been decimated with 20 years of war. The Japanese had beaten the crap out of them. And Chiang Kai-shek had done a pretty good job because they had a civil war. It was a totally decimated army. All they did was throw people in. They were using up our bullets. And MacArthur, who I would think would know a little more about this than a decrepit, falling apart Roosevelt or Truman, who, I don't know if they even think Truman graduated from college, but they make him into, he's a great president. Yeah, great president, my backside. I don't think Red China would be the threat they are to us today if Truman had the common sense to realize he was surrounded by people that were so left-wing, they were favoring communism. It took Eisenhower to straighten that out. But then he had no choice but to settle the war. Truman is the reason we lost our first war. Truman is the reason why, since then, we haven't won a war, except maybe the Iraq invasion under Bush. We just lose them or have ties. You think maybe the people who are wishing us evil aren't afraid of us anymore? You think that may be why Putin went into Ukraine and Iran encouraged Hamas to go into Israel? I have no doubt that's the reason. And that's something that didn't exist under Trump. And it's not going to exist. It's not going to exist starting the day he gets in there. I don't know what they're going to do before that. I know at the border, they're mounting up like crazy to get a whole bunch of people in before Trump comes in. And I don't know that the non-compass menace president will do anything about it. He probably wants those voters in. Look, they registered 20 or 25% of them. Every place that where there was a challenge to using illegal votes, they challenged. How can you go into court and argue that somebody who isn't a citizen should vote? You say it doesn't happen? Like hell, it doesn't happen. The New York City Council voted to allow non-citizens to vote. That's like getting rid of your country. 4 million Chinese could come in before the election and vote. Right? You have to have a stake in a country if it's going to work as a representational democracy. Otherwise, it's a fraud. Well, so look at the top there, you'll see that 13 of the top 25 district attorney races this election went to non-progressive, tough on crime, like real prosecutors, as opposed to public defenders who make believe they're prosecutors, and then the state isn't represented on either side. Public defender represents the criminal, and the prosecutor represents the criminal, and the criminal comes out, beats the hell out of you, robs you, steals from you, rapes your kid. And that's what you have going on in democratic cities. Did you ever wonder why it's all in Democrat cities? Well, the good news is this is one thing that seems to be getting through. This is one thing that seems like it's piercing the tremendous the tremendous iron curtain of propaganda that they put up. The case that you were talking about, the Whoopi Goldberg case, Ted, and that was a Charlotte Roos.
Yeah.
So I don't know why she did this, but Whoopi ordered a Charlotte Roos from a bakery in Staten Island. Now, Staten Island is a long way from Manhattan. And I would venture to guess that there are very few Staten Island anythings that deliver to New York, to Manhattan. I mean, actually, when I lived in Manhattan, basically they would deliver within about a 1 mile. I mean, you can look and you can say, this is the area we deliver in. They wouldn't even, a lot of them wouldn't deliver in all of Manhattan. We're talking about coming across the Verrazano Bridge, paying a huge toll, probably being in traffic, could take you an hour and a half to do the delivery. This is a small store. So they turned her down. She goes on television and excoriates them as if they did it because they didn't like her political views. And the people that go, according to customer Lucy D'Amato, they would never do that. Or I'm not going to get into detail about what happened, but she's not a nice person. Speaking of Whoopi, not a nice person. That's a bit of an understatement. She can basically put a place out of business by saying those comments live like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. They had a mechanical issue here and they couldn't deliver. That's why it didn't happen, according to one of the customers. They're not commenting because of, I guess, litigation. Whoopi paints herself as a working class person. 60 million. She's worth 60 million. Would you say she's working class? I mean, she got annoyed because they wouldn't deliver to her. Now, I'm going to tell you, they wouldn't deliver to anybody. Only person they would deliver to is me. you're going to wonder why they would deliver to me. Because they love me in Staten Island. And the only reason I was mayor of Staten Island the first time, I think I got 80% of the vote. So it's a special place for me, but not for anybody else. Certainly not for America Last people like, I don't even understand how that show exists.
Whoopi Goldberg. Well, the community
You've never
pushed
watched it?
back.
I can't remember. Was I ever on it?
Oh, I'm sure you've been on The View.
No, I think I blocked it out if I was. I don't think I was ever on it.
I'm gonna quick look. I'll figure
Take
it
a
out.
look. I don't know.
We'll take a quick break. Come back.
We'll take a quick break, and then you tell us what we have to wrap up for the weekend, and then we'll let everybody go on to hopefully a really, really nice weekend. I do want to say that you should watch Ukraine pretty carefully, because both sides are now vying for position. Russia has made an assault on a city only a few miles outside of Kyiv. And it's hard to tell whether they took the city or not, because you have conflicting reports. But that's very dangerous. I mean, does Putin have in mind trying to take the capital before he sits down and negotiates? I doubt it, but it could be. On the other hand, Ukraine made a big incursion, a symbolic incursion into Russia. So it's the first invasion of Russia since Hitler. And they went to Kursk, which is 30 miles, 40 miles over the border, and they took over Kursk. The Russians made a real effort to try to take it back, and rather remarkably, the Ukrainians defeated them in 2 nights of battle and killed about 3,000, 4,000 Russians. But that's not the end of it. That's the reason that Putin went and got 10,000 North Koreans who are now being trained to go take Kursk. The real hope for Ukraine is North Korea will go to the wrong place. The North Koreans don't seem to be able to integrate with the Russian army because they're a bunch of simpletons. I say that out with great sympathy. Do you know in North Korea, there's one television station? Mm-hmm. They got to make special televisions for North Korea with one station. The Kim Jong-un station. It's kind of like CNN. You know, they down to them and stuff like that. But the point I'm making is, when we look at these dictatorships that have to be overthrown if we're going to have a peaceful world, they're different. For example, the people in Iran are quite knowledgeable about what's going on around the world. You'd be very surprised to know that I'm pretty well known in Iran. I've given numerous speeches in Iran because of my work with the MEK, who broadcast directly into Iran. I just did one 2 weeks ago. And I'm not the only one by any means. The point that I'm trying to make to you is they have multiple ways to get information from the outside world, which makes the possibility of overthrowing the regime of terror much more realistic than overthrowing Kim Jong-un. And if you go to China, it's somewhere in the middle. And in China, in the more middle class or upper class parts of China, yeah, there's pretty good access to the world. But in the half of China that is third world poverty, there's no access to the world. And some of that is on purpose, and some of that is just pure poverty. So you have different situations. Russia, access to the world. The Russians have a pretty good idea of what the hell's going on. Putin has never been able to recreate the communist lockdown on all media. So that's probably the most porous of the four, which means that I'm going to tell you that China is worried that if Trump can come up with a reasonable settlement to the Ukraine situation, and his diplomatic and his negotiating abilities are such that it makes sense for the U.S. and Russia to help themselves against China. because China is a much bigger threat to Russia than we are, much bigger. And the Russians know that. I'm just repeating 1,000 years of history. It's the same reason that the Japanese and the Chinese, all you'd have to do is rearm Japan and you'd scare the living daylights out of China. Absolutely. Scare the living daylights out of them. Say, okay, Japan will guard Taiwan. Wow. So these are all possibilities, but in order to do that, Trump is going to have to get his team in who's allowed to think that way. What I just told you, the State Department, maybe half of them even consider the U.S. and whatever they think about. The others are really useless. I mean, they represent the country that they study or the country they go to, and that's going to have to be changed as much as the FBI and the Justice Department and the military, right? Our enlistments are way down. So keep your eye on all that. Let's watch Biden tomorrow embarrass us as a demented American president meets with one of the most vicious and bloodthirsty men in the world, Xi Jinping. And let's watch as the administration fills itself out. And we'll be back with you on Monday at 7 on Frank's speech. And we'll be back here at 8 on America's Mayor Live. And you can get Frank's speech on X at 7, and you can watch the whole thing. Or what you missed, you can watch over the weekend. So thank God. It's now been a little while since the election, but I'm still not sure it happened, that we were delivered. And thank you, God, for delivering us. And take care of the people that are at war now, huh? Take care of the people in Ukraine, and take care of the people in Israel, and take care of the people in Iran who really don't want to be under that reign of terror. And thank you, God, for giving us the wisdom that the majority of our people showed just a few days ago, really. You delivered us once again. And as John Kennedy said, John Kennedy said, on earth, the work of God is truly our own. Well, now we have to do the work. You gave us the opportunity. And I think Trump is going to come through for you. God bless America. Delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now.
Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom as we know it has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quicks. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
Bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze,